much for joining us. My name is Dennis Aguma, and I will be the moderator for today's session. For some reason, I'm not able to share my screen, so I'll go through some of the thoughts regarding this session. I hope that everyone can hear me. Colleagues, if you can hear me, please make some notes in the notes section so that we know that you can hear us wherever you are. We keep being asked what is NASE. NASE is a social enterprise that was registered in 2015 with support from Kingston University in London that focuses mainly on facilitating entrepreneurship and enterprise skills, generally with a laser focus on higher education institutions, but dealing with youth outside of school as well. We do this mainly by focusing on co-curricular activities in universities and vocational institutions. Our 4 pillars are mainly inspiring, skilling, incubating, and provision of grants and finance for some of these ideas to be realized. Our vision is to leverage the power of entrepreneurship, achieve sustainable socio-economic transformation. It's a shame that I'm not able to share my screen. Maybe I'll do that later. I had some interesting pictures of some of the hands-on practical aspects of entrepreneurship that we facilitated with our partners, such as Makerere University Business School, through what we call the Expo. And some of those ideas, as you will have seen on the pictures, include things like briquettes and stuff that this particular panel would be interested in. So what is the Youth Ideathon? If you're joining us, or if you've not heard about the Youth Ideathon, it is an initiative that is supported and funded by the UNDP. The purpose of the Ideathon really is to bring everything down to basics. And we all know that every business starts with a simple idea. And the word ideathon itself is borrowed from ideation, which is the creative process of generating, developing, and communicating new ideas. Often we've found, and one of my panelists will talk about this a while, that sometimes most of this support available for startups and entrepreneurs is usually meant for businesses that maybe are 12 months or older, perhaps more established, with a bank account or something like that. But this Ideathon is an entry-level initiative geared towards ensuring that everyone has a shot at starting a business, especially in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. We are very keen to rally young people to come up with business ideas in a variety of sections. And today is one of those themes, which is an interesting one around minerals and so on. I'll explain about it very shortly. The Ideathon is a process. It starts with an application. So if you haven't applied, please go to www.undp.nase.co.ug, where you will be given an application form and apply accordingly. Right now, we're going through the thematic sessions. This is the last week we're holding thematic sessions. The last one will be on Friday. And after that, we get into what we call a boot camp, which is 1 week of intense ideation, so to speak, where we bring your idea from just an idea to help you articulate it in such a way that you're able to pitch the idea. But the pitching is really very simple. It won't be very huge, so to speak. One of the things that I'm not able to show you, which is unfortunate, is this digital platform that we've developed with our partners, Hostelite, which is an interactive platform that enables our panel, our judges and mentors to go in the back end and help to guide you along this way. It's very interactive. You can use chats, you can attach documents, you can upload videos and things like that. But crucially, it keeps your idea safe in a way that our partners, the Innovate Labs Africa, who are helping us with intellectual property, can ensure that your ideas are in one place and trackable. So far, the interesting news is that we've had over 3,300 bright ideas, would you believe, and counting. Perhaps for the benefit of this panel, the mining and renewable energy is the least in terms of ideas that we're seeing. And maybe some of our panelists will be illuminating we'll be sharing some thoughts as to why maybe that is the case. As I mentioned earlier, the next sessions are on Thursday. It's smart cities and urban development. And the last one, but by no means least, will be on Friday, which is about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and maths, / ICT, which is information technology. Just to thank our panelists for sparing time really to join us, and our support partners in particular as well, plus our colleagues at the UNDP Accelerator Lab, whose efforts have really ensured that this particular ideathon goes into not just the ideathon itself, but links into other projects and programs that they're already running, including the Stanbic Business Incubator, for which one of our panelists is actually the head. So perhaps that's a good point to introduce our panelists. The first one is Comrade Tony Otoa. Tony is the Chief Executive of the Stanbic Business Incubator, which is mandated to support the development of SMEs in Uganda. His role is to design strategies, manage and implement activities and programs for enterprise development for the Stanbic Business Incubator, and manage the provision of access to market opportunities and customers, access to resources, including the development programs for entrepreneurs as an incubator or within the accelerator environment. Prior to this, Tony worked with Total Exploration and Production as the National Content Manager. In addition to this role, he was also the Public Affairs Manager. He's worked with civil society in the UK and Uganda, focusing on the oil and gas sector in the East African region. And it was in this period, actually, that he also published the regulations and laws for the oil and gas sector. Tony is also the founder of the National Content Council, a council geared towards the promotion of local content in the oil sector. He serves as the local content advisor to the Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum, where he was the oil and gas advisor since 2014. He holds a BSc International Relations and LLM in International Law. Thank you very much, Comrade Tony, for joining us. Really excited to have you. I've known Tony for a while, so I'm really excited to hear what his thoughts might be. And I think he brings an interesting perspective from the oil and gas sector, as well as from the enterprise and entrepreneurship facilitation side. So I'll be looking forward to your thoughts, Tony. Welcome. The next panelist, who I'm not sure whether he's joined us yet, is Gilbert Kamuntu, whom I've also known for over 10 years. Gilbert has over 15 years experience, almost all within the oil and gas sector. His experience includes economic modeling, business analysis, commercial negotiations across the petroleum value chain, from upstream production, refining, crude oil pipelines, oil terminals. Gilbert began his oil and gas career with Shell as a refinery economist at Stanlow Refinery in Northwest England, after which he spent several years in Shell strategy, mergers and acquisitions, working on transitions in Europe, Asia, North America, and Africa. Gilbert also works for Tullow Oil on the Uganda and Kenya upstream developments based in London, in Nairobi. Gilbert has a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from Nottingham University. I should mention that that was with a distinction. In energy studies, specializing in energy finance from Dundee University, and an MBA with merit from the University of British Columbia. His MSc thesis focused on the weaknesses of crude oil benchmarks in the financial derivatives. He has also completed several courses in project and infrastructure finance, corporate strategy and leadership at Manchester Business School and London Business School. So, as you can tell, the profiles of the panelists today, very interesting, covering all sectors. So if Gilbert, you've joined us, welcome. The next panelist is Westjay Don Binyina. Don is again, I've also been privileged to have known Don for a while now. He's the executive director and founder of the Africa Center for Energy and Mineral Policy. He's a lawyer and a mineral economist with over 10 years of national, regional, and international work experience in the mineral energy sectors. He has consulted for the World Bank, where he's credited for reviewing Uganda's mineral policy, fiscal regimes, and law, leading the formulation of Uganda's new mining and minerals policies in 2018. He has chaired the International Conference on Great Lakes Region Mineral Audit Committee and has been recognized as a fellow of the MEFDA, ACPE, EU, UNDP 2016 Emerging Leaders in African Mining. He holds an MSc in Mineral and Energy Economics from Curtin University in Western Australia. He has a law degree from Makerere University and a diploma in law from LDC. And he has attained several other prestigious trainings in resource governance. I could go on and on and on in Australia, Hungary, South Africa, Zambia, Netherlands, Belgium, among others. Don, if you're joining us, thank you very much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you. The Next panelist, I hear some of my, maybe some of the listeners saying, where is gender balance? Yes, we do have Hope Charisima, who has had a progressive experience in leading and managing programs and development, respectively. She initially worked to provide administrative support to programs, specialized in program monitoring and evaluation. She undertook advanced training and practice in human resource management, project information management systems, postgraduate trainings, involvement management within the spectrum of international involvement. She is a passionate believer in knowledge creation, sharing and transfer, hence her involvement with the youth-led think tank for policy alternatives in Uganda and serving on the board of Uganda's largest youth network. Her specialization is in international involvement, core management practice, policy analysis, research, and the mining sector development. Thank you very much, I hope, for joining us. Lastly, but by no means least, is Naomi Nangoku Mumoita. Nangoku is a senior mineral dresser in the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development. She has been working with the Ministry of Energy and Minerals for over 10 years. So colleagues, thank you very much for sparing time to join us. Just looking at your profiles, I am humbled to be a medist. I should mention, maybe for the benefit of our listeners, a disclaimer out there that I'm completely at sea in the mineral, in this particular space, oil, gas. This is not my area of expertise at all, but I'm delighted to have a fantastic panel that is going to help me to go through some of these sections. Maybe some housekeeping rules. If you're joining us as a participant, we do have Susan Mujawa on the sign language. So if you can't, if you have some impairments, then Susan should be able to help you. I think they're working in a pair, so hopefully you'll be able to get to move from one person to another. What one of our panelists normally does, Ben Winnie, who sadly has not been able to join us, is he normally goes through to try to find out where different individuals are. So if you could let us know where you are by typing in the chat so that we can pick up and follow up. We've been having, maybe for the benefit of panelists, we've been having participants from across the whole country, from Gulu, from Kawale, all over, even in Kampala. So if you could let us know where you are. Oh yes, some colleagues from Bugolovi, Nalia, I can see Shem Derek from Nalia. It's quite a number of you. Kafuma Muhammad from Lubaga, a geologist from Bunamwaya, Caroline from Butabika. I think Caroline has been really joining us because I saw you last time as well. Bruno Namasi, Kawempe, Bruce, thank you very much. Keep those coming. Let's know where you are. Sometimes it's very helpful, especially, someone from Kazo district. Fantastic. So yeah, it's very good to know where you are because it can contextualize the discussion. So perhaps if I'd like to go to, let me see if, yes, maybe I should start with Hope. Hope, very delighted that you are able to join us. I know that you're very passionate. We were talking briefly about these derivative minerals. We're talking about extractives. And one of the things we've been seeing, especially when we've been running some of these thematic sessions, is there are some topics and themes where young people usually think, this is for, these wizards, like ICT maybe is an exception. But like agriculture, we were surprised by how many young people were there. The manufacturing section, the other day, we were surprised by how cool that sector is, and lots of young people. So to our young people, what are these extractives, derivatives, what are they, and how can young people begin to navigate around oil, gas, minerals? Because when you talk about oil, everyone knows what oil and gas is. And they think that the best that can come out of that is a petrol station where they sell oil. But of course, there is a lot that goes on in that space, isn't there? Hope.
Sure. Thank you, Dennis. And good morning, everyone. Thanks for making the time and the interest. When we talk about extractives, we really mean minerals, oil, and gas. And I'm sure this is going to be extensively discussed looking at the profile of the colleagues on the panel. But so if I may start, is that one, we know that Uganda is very well endowed as a country in natural resources. Yeah, you find that, I'm sure we've heard it from school, we have natural resources, lakes, to the parks, and of course the minerals. So this is one of the areas that is largely untapped actually. If you look at the level of economic activity, if you look at the contribution of the extractive sector to our national GDP, you know, it's really meager, yet we are very, really well endowed. And so we've been really realizing the issue that, one, we need new ideas and new energy around this sector for it to be meaningful for young people, for instance. Where you look at issues in terms of opportunities, I'm sure people have been following development in this sector. We've been seeing at least UNDP trying so much. For example, when we say development minerals, what is this about? You find there are construction materials, dimension stones, people who work in stone aggregate, all that kind of infrastructure development you're seeing is really driven by certain minerals and substances, right? That are mined, that are processed within Uganda, for instance. Those are development minerals. And we've been seeing a lot of, for example, people who work in quarries. I'm sure you've seen brilliant innovations. People who are producing tiles. People have been designing your houses with very brilliant and beautiful stone. When we talk about marble, I'm sure all of us know how much marble, for example, is processed or exported from Uganda. When you look at these beautiful gemstones that are used for decoration and industrial purposes, when you hear Uganda hosting a number of cement factories, just think about where the limestone is coming from and other inputs, yeah? So you find this, and that's just for minerals. I'm sure we are all aware of the buzz around the oil sector and the gas sector. So we have a lot of opportunity in these resources. Good enough, we are in a time where there's a lot of advanced technology, good ideas, opportunity for innovation. For instance, when you look at the stuff people are doing with stone, just stone, it's amazing. You look at the stuff people are doing and utilizing for construction in all ways possible. It's amazing. So we are not importing any of this. Of course, it's coming from Uganda. So young people, what I would want to share is that we've seen very brilliant examples of people who have invested and have studied. Some of them are self-tutored in adding value, because that's one of the bottlenecks, right? Very minimal value addition in this sector. So young people can really come in on that in terms of actually looking at what's out there and innovating for the market, and the demand is insatiable. Everyone wants a beautiful house, everyone wants an efficient production. All these road projects, for example, the concrete products used for culverts, it's a lot out there. And I'm sure my colleagues will delve into that more. But what I wanted to really pass along for young people is that the opportunity is there. We have the biggest input we would want, the natural resource. And where do you guys come in? Where do young people come in? For instance, you come in terms of service delivery. Not everyone must go in old school mining, for instance. You have young people who are working around the service sector, around this mining and extractive sector. For instance, people are providing ICT services, database management services, marketing and supplying equipment, and doing all that kind of sales stuff. You have young people who are really focused really largely on the innovation. We have been seeing brilliant ideas, for instance, of young people wanting to make toothpaste, you know, using certain minerals and materials in Uganda and all that. So there are very many ways in which people can come along the value chain of minerals, oil and gas, and the opportunities are very many. Also, in terms of the opportunities, we understand that there's a lot of challenge around financing, for example, because someone says, okay, for me to cut this stone in a way, for me to polish and get a market grade tile, for example, for me to win a contract supply in the oil and gas sector, I need money for the right equipment, the right certification and all that. But conversations have been happening, and a lot of facilities and tools. For example, even this Ideathon is one of the many grant facilities that are really tailored to really support this kind of innovation. So for me, my advice for young people is to really be proactive, look out for these kind of support system and opportunities, and also ultimately try and apply, but also network and engage. This is a very good start. As you will see, we will learn so much from each other, where you're having a challenge in marketing, in positioning, in generating, for example, a network linkage to someone who can help you bring in a piece of equipment or teach you, you know, a lot of the work that other people are doing. This is the space. So for me, I've seen for young people, we've been supporting them so much at UNDP to really activate their knowledge, right? In terms of the opportunities that are there, but also to bring them together. We run a development minerals program, for instance, which is targeting that kind of construction sector, for the industrial mineral sector. And we've seen the beauty of collaboration. Someone has been sourcing for limestone, is based in Kira, and you find somehow, because now he has been trained and put in touch with someone from Moroto, for instance, a kind of supply blockages are kind of resolved there and then. So it's important for people to really get out of their comfort zones and network. You don't have to do everything yourself. Knowledge is indeed power. So we've seen that when we invest so much in bringing them together, discussing and showcasing what they have, then that helps. Also, another opportunity that we are really pursuing and enabling young people to really benefit from is around inclusive financing, because I've been attending the rest of the past week's Ideathon, and you find indeed that most people don't have the collateral at all to even convince any banker to even look at their kind of business proposal. Some people themselves do not even know how to utilize the quantities of the resources they have to actually make a business case. So we've been looking at alternative and ways of really catalyzing and attracting financing to this sector in terms of training young people to really build bankable business proposals, articulate the value they are bringing, and of course, demonstrate some seriousness in terms of formalization. No matter, even if you own the resource, for example, your own inquiries, your grandfather left you this land and you know it has gold and all that kind of stuff. Is your business well known? You have the right licenses. That's a good starting place that young people should focus on to take themselves serious and take the business in extractives serious. I'm sure I've seen a lot of interest also in terms of the local content, in terms of how do I plug into all this oil and gas sector? How do I get on the supplier database? Those kind of stringent itemized lists that they give you to really comply to are meaningful because they show your level of seriousness, your partnerships, but also the ability to actually run a business. So sometimes the idea itself is not enough. I just wanted to emphasize that some of the opportunities that young people miss out are the failure to take off the little obvious things. For instance, can you apply for a mining license? Are your operations in a group or an association well registered with the local government around you? Do they know you? Do you have a certificate to really, you know, do this kind of work? If you look at the business plans we develop, do you have an idea and a thought? Have you thought through the market of this place? Are you using your product for the best way? We've been in, for example, quarries where people are using very nice decorative stone and they are crushing it for gravel and selling it at a very cheap price and a loss. Yet if they knew how to add value and package it well, you know, they would get much more financing and probably market. So I think my advice to young people is that the opportunities in extractives, that is minerals, oil and gas are there, but we must show a lot of proactiveness. Some opportunities are not going to find you on your phone in terms of someone delivering to you everything. You need to be creative and look out there what's there. People are making money out of this. But importantly, I think we need to put our businesses on paper in terms of having them formalized, be registered, do the bare minimum so that when someone says, bring me your documents, it's not when you're running to get actually even a registration certificate. Get your house in order, be aware of the kind of resource you have, and be aware of the market. The demand is so exciting and agile. For example, look at how a beautiful building is put together. How much of that can you tap into, you know, in terms of the service and products you can actually innovate around. So for me, is to reassure young people, as people who have been working in this sector, collaborating across government and private sector, opportunities are many. The bankers, development partners are willing to support, but my message to young people is also let's do our part, get organized, get registered, be very innovative and do the research. Not everything. You can transplant an idea from Nigeria, from Ethiopia, from Italy, and bring it here to deliver a service for the Ugandan market. So that's what I can really briefly say to demystify this whole extractive sector. There are very many opportunities for young people. It's not only for the tycoons like it has been constructed, and there are so many opportunities that young people can work through if they really do the right partnerships and actually formalize their businesses. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hope. I think what you've just articulated in one word might just be information, because I got, I think just shortly before lockdown, I was very lucky to travel to Mbarara with Don, and he took me on a learning expedition, showed me stones and quarries, and explained to me the whole chain, where the stones come from, the people who are actually hammering these stones and breaking them, how they are processed into like granite, showed me the opportunities of, all these roads that are being paved, who is going to provide all those, and the whole value chain. It's incredible. You've just been talking about building houses, people who are putting up, if you go to some of these houses now, you will see like stones, beautiful, they designed stones in like straight, kind of flat type of stones. That whole industry is huge, and the type of minerals I actually did not. And my question to him at the time was, but not all of us can own this amount of land. And he said, you don't actually have to own the land, which is what you're talking about. There's a whole value chain. You can organize yourselves together and access some of these resources. So one of the things you mentioned as well was this supplier database. I first learned about it about 3 or 4 months ago, when actually one of the startups was asking us how they can supply, how they can win some bids for this, the oil and gas that is coming up. And my colleague John looked in, my colleague Jimmy looked into this and said there's actually a database that he needs to be on. But as you rightly pointed out, to get onto that database, they can't just add you on as Dennis Aguma. You really need to have a registered organization, be very clear on what you're going to provide. I think there's some kind of due diligence, if I'm not mistaken. So information is really very important. Is there like a one-stop place for this whole industry, or are you able to share 1 or 2 areas where people can go and gather a lot of this information? I know with the UNDP, we've done a lot of work in this space in minerals, and I'm sure Tony will talk about this very briefly as well. Is there like one-stop center where this information can be sold? Hope.
For sure, yeah, very good summary of what I've just discussed. Thank you, Dennis. And indeed, if we had more time to explore this whole value chain, is amazing. I mean, you, for example, for UNDP, like you had me allude to that SCP Youth Development Minerals Program. We've trained over 500 young people in all sectors of local government, private sector. I see some of them are actually attending this session. They can also share their experiences within the church to inspire others. In terms of information, it's very specific, inward looking for sectors. But I know, for instance, for anything around petroleum, for instance, when you go to the Petroleum Authority of Uganda website, all the kind of opportunities, be it the adverts, be it the requirements, be it, anything, it's in there. Yeah, so Petroleum Authority database. If you go to the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development website, for instance, we have the Director of Geological Survey and Mines. For instance, there's an online mining cadastre. It's like they just got the mapped areas of Uganda for mining and put them online. And actually they show you which areas are licensed and unlicensed. If you Google the Uganda Mineral Cadastre, for instance, all that information is there. I know for people who wanted to invest in mining, some of them found themselves with ghost licenses just because they didn't research. The middleman issue, for instance, people were lying to people and they were issuing, those middlemen were telling people, give me this money, I help you secure this and this license. But if you went to the Ministry of Energy Mineral Cadastre, you can see for yourself from your device which areas are up for license and which are not, and what kind of minerals and materials are there. So that information is really a big challenge that we are trying to address. For Uganda and UNDP specifically, we've been trying to plug this gap in terms of actually pointing people to the right direction, looking at, for example, the Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum. We've been working with them a lot to really showcase what kind of opportunities for investment are there in Uganda and even for youth. We've done work with them to really showcase in terms of the Youth Week for mining, oil and gas, what opportunities are there. So when the young people also can, I know some of them tell me, oh, this Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum is for big people, that big investors, chairman, Karang and all that. But those guys are actually able to really help people understand the sector, the investment opportunities. And it's not only for foreigners like people think, you know, there's a very healthy membership from the Ugandan Forum. And actually you find that if you have anything in terms of queries, in terms of where to put your money, in terms of guidance on what you need, you know, sometimes this sector is maybe complex for some to interpret some standards on their own. I think also checking with the Uganda Chamber of Mines is possible. Then also you've heard me talk about development minerals, construction, like you mentioned limestone, and you're like, what is this, right? So one investment UNDP alongside the EU and government of Uganda and the Africa, Caribbean, Pacific group of states did was invest in actually exactly that. We really conducted a baseline, an extensive baseline study of the sector, the development mineral sector in Uganda. We went even a step further and provided a value chain analysis. So people who say we do not know where to start, whether you're a banker, whether you're an investor, a social worker, that report is online. I'm happy to really share the link right now for that report. So if you want to know about this sector in Uganda, it's a very fresh report, just 2 years old. It has the profile of this sector in terms of the issues pertinent, but also the value chain analysis. That in itself is enough to really point people to the most lucrative value chains and products they need to actually invest and engage in. So we've been trying also to really put that out there so that people can really remove that kind of excuse. And when you heard me talk about formalization a lot, the truth is with our private sector, like I told you colleagues, ideas are not enough. We must really get organized, articulate them, package our information in the right way. So one thing that UNDP also has done, again, under the Development Minerals Program, is to really publish a formalization strategy and business acceleration strategy for development minerals. What do we mean? We want all stakeholders interested in serving this sector be able to pick up this kind of strategic document and say, where is my role in this? How can I help this formalization? But for the formalized one, also they lack a lot of kind of business support and growth service they need. So in there, we have given you the analysis in terms of the issues hampering this, but also the strategies around it in terms of how you can deliver and access good business acceleration services. So that's also is there. So we've been trying to really fill that knowledge gap in terms of giving very rigorous and scientific data. And I would want to encourage the young people, when you meet someone like, for example, Tony Otto at Stanbic, you better know what you're talking about, honestly. He's a compassionate person, for instance, you know him, he's compassionate about youth and all that. But once you want to convince someone like that to buy into your idea and put his money into it, you better know what you're talking about. So there are no shortcuts there. That's why you see at UNDP, we've been trying to really give you the right, rigorous information so that you can independently make a case. We don't need Dennis to do all this all the time of holding hands, you know. If you help someone through the ideathon, it would be brilliant to see them after 1 year, able to knock on doors and actually win bigger contracts. But the shortcut around this is really be invested and do your research, yeah? Because these guys we are trying to attract finance ideas also know what they want, you know. So you must demonstrate that you've done enough study, you know the issues beyond your product, you know the sector, the opportunities. For example, if you ask young people around the National Development Plan, Uganda's development agenda, where does extractives fall? Someone who could come and link his business plan to Uganda's focus and drive to industrialization will be more convincing than someone giving a sob story, oh, my grandfather left me this and I want to make some money for this. That should not be enough. You must show contribution to the bigger ecosystem. And that's how we talk about inclusivity. That's how we talk about strategic impact, yeah? So I would want to share with fellow young people, we must read. There are no shortcuts, read these reports, understand the sector you're operating, so that when we're talking to the big guys, because I think this idea thing is about making people get out of these small cocoons and small. We start small, but the vision is to grow big. But the sectors we are trying to get into and the people we are trying to really invest in our ideas need to be confident that we know what we're talking about. So those are bits of some of the good research products that we have, but they shouldn't be intimidated about that, because all those products also have very concise summaries for information, and documentation. So we have also very short products out of that people can pick and have a good scan of a sector. So this information is out there. Be creative, be innovative, search. I mean, online, we've seen there's nothing that is not online. It's just a matter of doing research and also for local information. I think those three that I talked about could be good pointers. Unfortunately, I don't know any centralized database or information source for this, but maybe it's a journey that ministry can lead or something, but at least the things are pointed out. If young people look into those websites of Chamber of Mines, the Petroleum Authority, and of course the Directorate of Geophysical Survey and Mines for the mining information. Look at UNDP for those kinds of research products around how to find these sectors. It will be a good start.
Thank you very much, Hope. You've really illuminated and shared a lot of information. For a start, if you could share that link in the chat box, that would be very helpful. Someone did mention some time ago that if you want to hide anything from Africans or Black people for that matter, stick it in a book and they probably won't read it. I would like to think that some of the participants on this occasion will actually read it. I've actually seen some of those documents. They are really detailed. And one of the issues around this particular space is that value chain that you're talking about. Maybe this is a good time to bring in Comrade Tony Otoa, but before I do that, could you please, if anyone is listening, the participants who are on the call, could you please use the chat box to share your experiences if you've actually been part of the UNDP program around this area? Would love to hear from you. Some very good stories have been coming from that side. So this might actually inspire some of the others. We do have a Q&A section, so you can actually ask questions. If you could ask the questions, that would be great. All the panelists will be keeping an eye on the Q&A, and they might be able to respond in real time. Tony, one of the, and I think Hope alluded to this very, very clearly, you're very passionate about young people. You're very passionate about entrepreneurship facilitation. I've seen you on panels around international trade and so on and so forth. Actually, I was first surprised when I saw you in the oil and gas space until my colleague in the UK said, actually, that's where he honed his craft. He has a lot of history in that space. And then I did a lot of reading. So your congruence between oil, gas, minerals, that side, to enterprise and entrepreneurship, specifically for startups and SMEs, is something I find very interesting. We don't all have to own these minerals or land, the land where these minerals are. What are you seeing in terms of the latest trends around oil and gas? Because I know that we're sitting on a lot of oil. Recently, we had a pipeline. I think there was a suggestion that, no. There was a deal, actually, where the pipeline is being constructed. And some of the people on social media especially were complaining, saying that we thought that there would be refineries here and that we would be generating all these jobs here. It appears those are going to be shipped away. What are you seeing? Where are the opportunities, the low-hanging fruits initially for the young person that doesn't own the land where the oil is seated? Where are the opportunities? What are you seeing from your experience, Tony?
Thank you. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Hope. And thank you all of, thanks to all of you who are on here. It's a privilege, first of all, to speak with you. I'm actually excited and delighted. Anything to do with youth and anything developmental of this kind really inspires me. So thank you, NASE, for putting this together. I think it's worthwhile. It's quite interesting that now we have young people trying to get into this space. If you think about it, I sit on the board of the Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum. You'll find that it's only the old guys who are deciding and making decisions and lobbying on behalf of the whole population. But this forum here gives everyone an opportunity, especially the young people, to be part of this conversation. So thank you so much for that to begin with. Dennis, my journey in the whole extractive sector and really focusing on business and business development comes or stems out of my passion for the same since 2008. And we have done some work with my colleague Angelo Izama on the policies, regulations for the oil and gas sector and local content policies all through this time. So we have been really engaging with this sector for quite some time, over 10 years now. And it's one that we find a lot of interest in. But you need to also realize that the last 10 years have just been about this thing that people do not see, this idea that people do not see coming. FID, final investment decision. When is first oil coming? We've been talking about it. For many young people who haven't gotten into it, I think you should thank your gods, because many old people, many people who got into it got their fingers burnt. And they got their fingers burnt because they were rushing into something that, one, they probably did not understand very well in terms of the oil and gas cycle, but also two, it was a certain time that, of course, led to a deviation or led to activity going down. So you have what they call exploration and appraisal, where you go explore and then you appraise the field to find out how much. So exploration is to find out if there is indeed oil. Then you go and appraise to find out how much oil is there and what's the best way we can take it out. And then after that phase, you go into a planning phase. Now, unfortunately for Uganda, we were in a long planning phase all the way from roughly 2003, 2004, up to pretty much this year. Now, what that meant is that, of course, during the planning phase, you're going through host government agreements, you're going through drilling plans, you're going through production plans, you're going through decommissioning plans, all of these things to kind of make the project a farm project. Now, boom, all of a sudden, we have this conversation on final investment decision. And what does that mean for a young person? What does that mean for young people on this call, on this webinar, who want to engage in the, in the sector, but also want to be not just a statistic, but a great statistic that can actually come out of this great oil and gas story. Now, as you all know, as Uganda, or the government of Uganda is trying its best to make sure that we do not go through what they call the proverbial oil and gas curse. This has happened in great countries like Nigeria. This has happened in so many countries around the world. But also what you need to understand is that Uganda discovered oil at the same time as Ghana. Now, what Ghana did was to rush into production. And what happened? Not so much local content was realized. Not so many regulations and laws were put in place for both the environment, local content, and so on and so forth. And now they're working backwards to try and do those things. On the other hand, in Uganda, we made sure that we had all of these in place. Policies, laws, pushing for local participation so that when this opportunity comes, there is something that can guide us as a country. I think that's a good thing. Now, we have bodies like the Petroleum Authority that are doing a great job in trying to regulate the sector, but we also have entities that are taking care of our interests, because what normally happens in most countries is you'll find foreign companies coming and making the best out of this opportunity and local companies not participating or getting much from it. It's our opportunity now based on the laws and regulations. And if you are aware and keen, you will find that in all of these laws and acts, the Petroleum Act of 2013, midstream and upstream, you will find that there are 13 areas or sectors that are ring-fenced for Ugandan businesses, meaning it's a great opportunity, a low-hanging fruit for Ugandan entities to participate. So that for me is a great thing to start with. But that aside, where do we see the proper low-hanging fruits? And I'm glad, Dennis, you asked that question. First and foremost, if you want to understand the oil and gas sector, you need to understand that the Ugandan sector will have between 13 to 15,000 directly employed workers. Not just Ugandans, but a mix of Ugandan and foreign workers, directly employed, and this is a peak. Out of that, you will have another 35,000 indirect workers, support the direct workers. And then out of that as well, I mean, above that, you'll also have another 100 to 115,000 induced workers, providing all the things that we see, banking, catering, and all of these things. So ultimately, you're looking at about 150 to 160,000 or 170,000 opportunities, new opportunities created, which means it might not be enough. It might not be enough for every young person to jump onto that bandwagon. So there is a possibility that you might not be able to provide your manpower to the oil and gas sector, but you can provide a service. And how do you provide a service? You have to provide a meaningful service that is needed within the oil and gas sector. And it can come from catering to whatever you are doing as a business. Now, the inconvenient truth is your service has to be to the standard, the oil and gas standard, number one. Number two, you have to be on the national supplier database. To be on the national supplier database will allow you to be able to provide a good or service to the oil and gas sector. Even if it's a needle, you will have to be on the oil and gas service, national supplier database. But truth be told, again, not everyone is going to provide a good service. Not everyone is going to provide manpower. That's the inconvenient truth. But where can we as young people who have small pockets of land, or can actually hire small pockets of land, or can actually go into the agribusiness world, make and benefit so much from it? Now, this is where the opportunity comes, agriculture. What we have seen is that in agriculture, you are able to impact and influence women, youth who have probably never been to school, but are able to make some great amount of money that can actually go into their pockets and be able to sustain not just their families, but their local economy. And I think for me, that's a great opportunity. So oil and gas is going to come, yes, but as a young person, what are you looking out for? What are you good at? What are you good at that you can use to get into this sector? Now we're talking mines, minerals, and everything, but let's also understand that the two areas are cross-cutting. They're all extractives. And if you've been in the extractive space, you'll understand that not everyone who eats quality food, the kind of Serena, will be there. There will also be other people who eat Mama Mary kind of food. So are you ready to provide that? If I went into Hoima today, Dennis, I'll shock you. Hoima does not have the capacity today to host 300 Dennises in one day. I don't know if you know that, but that's the inconvenient truth. And why is that? There's not enough accommodation to host quality accommodation I'm talking about, to host the kind of Dennises. The food in Hoima, chicken is got from Kampala. Fish, despite Lake Albert being very close, is got from Kampala. Most animal products are going to have to be got from Kampala. But just think about how much opportunity that is for the local population or the 10 districts surrounding the oil and gas area. Now, let us scratch Hoima and the oil and gas area or the upstream area. Let's talk about the pipeline districts. You're going to have a pipeline, a 1,400 kilometer pipeline all the way into Tanga in Tanzania, going through Uganda. Close to 350 kilometers are in Uganda, meaning that you're going to have at least 2 to 3 amazing camps and a lot of works along that pipeline route. It goes through 10 districts. It's a huge opportunity. Interestingly, it also goes through Mubende, which is a very interesting district when it comes to mining. But that's an opportunity right there. So I think in all honesty, the oil and gas opportunity is here. It is up to us to really strategically jump onto it, make use of it, but also see ways in which we can incentivize as many young people to see it as an opportunity. Construction phase, when opportunity happens, might only be here for about 6 years to 7 years. What usually happens after construction phase, when you have the first oil, you go into what we call a plateau phase. A plateau phase means there's not so much activity, there's not so much opportunity going on, there's nothing really going on. So this is the best time to make money. This is the best time to make or to support that sector and create value from it. So All I can say, ladies and gentlemen, is let us use this opportunity to make the best out of what we have. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Tony. And that was a very good point on which to end. That in entrepreneurship, one of the key entrepreneurial skills is being able to recognition of opportunities, and timing sometimes is very important. From what you're saying is that this is the perfect time, because we couldn't have gone in earlier. There were guys who are doing the heavy lifting and their hands got burnt. Anyway, if we wait until maybe 2 or 3 months, a few years rather down the line, that might be a bit too late. So I think that's a very good point to make. Talking of Hoima, my brother actually recently, about 2 years ago, moved over to Hoima and started his life there. They've set up a nursery school. I think they're probably going to be one of the best nursery schools. And I was asking why the nursery? He says, all these people who are moving in that space, they're going to need quality education for their children. Who's going, so I didn't appreciate that until he began to tell me the things that you're talking about. These people will need somewhere to sleep. They will need the food to eat, and so on and so forth. But one of the things you talked about, technical jargon, if I might say, what is local content? Now, I'm able to decipher that. But for a young person who is on this call, when you say local content, what do you actually mean? The other question I had for you was, you mentioned 13 sectors that have been ring-fenced for local, for the local industries. Do you want to share some of those as well, if you have them off the top of your head? Just those two quickly, and then we'll get back to Hope.
Right, so let me start with, you said local content, right?
Yes.
So local content is very much about in-country value. How much value are we retaining in-country? So based off all that is happening and all the activity that's going on in the oil and gas sector, how much in-country value are we retaining? If you think about the opportunities that happened in the construction, the drilling phase, or man, I'm just losing my, there's so many terms here, whatever. No, if you look at the activity that happened during the exploration and appraisal phase, there was so much money made, but if you look at how much was retained in country value, there wasn't so much. Now, that meant that not many Ugandans enjoyed the opportunities. Most of the money went out of the country. We never had a lot of guys who were able to take on such crazy contracts to be able to make money out of this. So local content here is about shedding more light, or a spotlight on local opportunities or local participation in this sector, to make sure that we have more in-country value, more in-country retention, and this can be through manpower, so having more locals working in the sector, or this can be through providing goods and services. And again, this can be through the local companies providing this, and by providing this, you have more money retained in the country. When it comes to the ring-fenced areas, I'm just trying to put those up.
Maybe I can let you. I can let you pick those ones up, and in the meantime, go to Naomi. Or have you found them?
Right, they're here. So you'll have, of course, the likes of security. You'll have camp services. You'll have fumigation and all of these services. You will have accommodation services. You will have transportation of personnel. You'll have foods and beverages, hotel services, human resources, office supplies, customs clearance, fuel supply, land surveying, clearing and forwarding, crane hire, and locally available construction materials. Now, if you're mining and if you have quarries, this is a great opportunity. And it is for you as Ugandans. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tony. I think for the listeners, there are some low-hanging fruits that have been ring-fenced for yourselves. I'd like to get to Naomi. Naomi, yes, I can see you, Naomi. Good to have you. Naomi, I know from the panel brief that you're a senior mineral dresser. Tell me, what does a senior mineral, what is a mineral dresser? Do you dress these minerals in some kind of fancy clothes? What do you actually do? Maybe this one is for the benefit of some career guidance for someone that might be on the call.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dennis, for having me here. Mineral dressing is literally value addition, is another word for mineral processing, or simplified as value addition. So for someone out there, they shouldn't think it's some complex thing, or no, it's just value addition, which I can still break down. For example, Hope talked about the value chain. Yeah, many times we look at, I'll give an example of a mineral or a commodity like marble. All we know is one of the ingredients in cement production, but there are so many products that we can make out of marble. So if the youth can actually capitalize along the value chain, there's so many opportunities when it comes to value addition. There's so many different products that we can actually get out of just one commodity. So value addition is a place when we are talking about opportunities in the extractives. Value addition is the place for the youth, especially the youth, because there is not so much high technology that is required here, especially for minerals that we locally use around. You had Hope mentioning of development minerals. These are really very common minerals that we live within our society. Look at the clays, look at the brick making that is happening along the highways. Okay? That is all value addition. So if the youth would focus their energies and think of what other commodity, what other products can I make out of these? When we look at the rocks that are actually quote unquote say rocks, yeah, the granites, the different types, many would think, okay, we can use them for only road construction, but trust me, there's so many products we can make out of that. So many products along the way, and in there, or at every stage, we have several opportunities from manpower, from goods and services, just like my colleague was mentioning, Tony was mentioning, the goods and services that can be provided along the value chain. Look at the transportation. Yeah, all these minerals need to move from one place to another. Imagine the youth could focus on that. Yeah, or come up in a group, an organized group, because many of them would think, okay, this will require huge sums of money and all, but imagine they came up in forms of groups. Yeah, over the years, the youth groups have been promoted and they've been given incentives here and there. Imagine they use such facilities to come up with such meaningful ideas. That's just an example.
Actually, that's a very good point to note. So I come from Kabale, and sometimes when we go towards the village, there's a place, actually the place where I come from, it's called Ahamabare. If you go to our place, if you're on a taxi and they have to drop you off, it's Ahamabare, where the stones are. And most of that land apparently used to be useless. I think our grandfather probably gave away a lot of it. But there's a lot of activity that's happening there right now with women, especially women and young children. I think that probably qualifies as child labor. Some of them, of course, are very traumatized by seeing these little kids. And what pissed me off was that these women who are actually doing all the heavy lifting and breaking the stones, literally back-breaking stones. Some guy parks his tipper there and they get paid peanuts, literally small amounts of money. And when one of our colleagues who's supposed to have joined us today was telling me how much these guys then go on to sell some of these stones and what happens to these stones further down the chain in terms of building houses, I was really sad. Maybe this is a good point to bring you in, being a civil servant from a government perspective. What is being done to protect the plight of these individuals who are doing all the heavy lifting and yet they get paid the least? But on the other side, as the entrepreneur in me, I'm like, there's nothing wrong with this guy who's coming to pick the stones. He knows the value of the stones. And if he didn't take the stones, then these women wouldn't get money. So it's a moral dilemma. How do you square this circle?
Well, government has engaged in different initiatives, especially awareness. Yeah, especially for the women, for example, the women that you've mentioned, they actually do not know the real value of those stones that they are selling away. They have no idea of the value of the stones. So they wouldn't mind to sell them for peanuts. For example, a quarter a jerry can, a 20-liter jerry can, because most of them, that's the measure they use, a quarter of a jerry can, a 20-liter jerry can, they'll sell it at maximum 10,000, you know. But those are many, you know, when they have collected, many of them after a whole day work, hard labor. So one thing that the ministry is doing is really promoting what kind of minerals that we have. Yeah, when you go to our website, you will still find information about the diverse minerals around in the country. And we are having a program with still UNDP and the Development Minerals that is really supporting us. We're working really together to see that we reach out to those minerals, especially the development minerals. In this case, the development minerals, those are majorly the construction materials that we find along the way, the clays, the granites, and all the other minerals that are used in construction. So one of the ways is to promote so that they can know, they are aware of the value of these minerals. So several trainings have been done up country or across the nation, together with support from UNDP, to make awareness of this. And then also the other bit that the government is doing is promoting formalization. The biggest challenge that we've had in the sector is having such people like the women working illegally. Yeah, they are actually operating illegally. So governments cannot even fully come in to support. You know, it's just like a dilemma. You have caught a thief, he's bleeding. And then you're like, where should we first run to? Should we first go to police? Should we first run to hospital? So it's just a dilemma. But then government has gone ahead to promote formalization of these operations, because initially these minerals, this kind of commodities were not registered or captured in the law as minerals. They were referred to as building materials. So with the review of the mining bill and the policy, we had to capture this so that we are able to streamline the operations of such minerals. So with the new bill, we have these development minerals are going to be categorized as minerals. They'll be looked at as minerals. So they'll have to follow the same procedure like other minerals that have to undergo. Someone has to acquire a license to operate. So when someone has a license, it's easy for you or for government to monitor their operations, to advise them on different ways of how they can promote that. But many programs are ongoing, especially with the development minerals sector. Several programs are ongoing to reach out to such communities.
Thank you very much, Naomi. I can't let you go without asking you about, because when we were growing up doing our geography, there were some key minerals that you all knew. Copper in Kilembe, what happened to it? Actually, that's the most, are we still mining copper, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, that's a very good one. I guess everyone wants to know copper, yes. Yes, government is still pushing up for this to get a good investor. I would use the term a good investor that is able to extract, process this copper, because right now we want all the value addition to be done in the country. Because when we have the value addition done within the country, we are able to have so many opportunities for the locals. We are able to have as many opportunities, as much income for the country compared to when it's taken out. So right now, government is still going through the different processes with different sectors, for example, finance and Ministry of Trade, to ensure that we get a suitable company that can be able to extract this copper. Yes, we still have copper. It has never got exhausted. We still have it. And we are just in that place of waiting for a competent company.
Now, I think on that note, this is a very good note to also ask about, I was reading a report the other day, and apparently Uganda is one of the biggest exporters of gold. Now, I where does this gold come from? Could it be that this is the gold coming from the neighboring countries, and that we're actually adding value to it and therefore exporting? And when the statistics are done, it's actually Uganda which is exporting. Which brings me back to the point that you're talking about, where people don't actually have to have a gold mine, that you can actually be part of this value chain where you're adding value, perhaps you're processing it. Is that what you're seeing, or are we sitting on some huge mountains of gold somewhere that I'm not aware of?
That's very interesting. Just like my previous colleague mentioned, Uganda is endowed. I think Uganda, when God was creating or making Uganda, he put all the best minerals in our country. That is really something that Ugandans need to look out. All the beautiful minerals, Uganda has them. It's really very interesting. And most of them actually are untapped. For example, when you look at our gold, yes, we have gold, but most of the reserve is so untapped. So we have gold, yes, the news reports of how much quantities of gold that goes out of the country, but also it's very important to note that we have refineries. Yeah, for example, the AJR that is now known on the African continent, and also the other refineries around. So it's also a place where in as much as we are refining our own gold, we're adding value to our own gold from our different regions in the country. We still have people that come in here and also refine their gold. Yeah. So at the end of the day, when we are looking at the exports, all that statistics is captured in there. But for Ugandans need to know that we have gold and it's so untapped, and we need to venture out and pick interest, especially when we talk about the youth. It's very important they take interest in this. There are so many minerals around Uganda that we need to explore.
Thank you very much, Naomi. At this point, I just wanted to, for the benefit of anyone who is on the call, and there's quite a number. Actually, I'm excited by how many participants we actually have for this oil, gas, minerals sector. So I see you chatting. I've not been able to go through all the chats, but we do have a Q&A facility, which you're welcome to ask questions. And I noticed that around 12 questions have already been answered by my colleagues. I can just go through them very briefly and then come back to Hope and Tony. This is Josiah Batwara. My question is, what is the future of oil and gas industry on the global market, with the world moving from fossil energy and perhaps renewable? Cars and machinery that are electric seem to be the new trend. Maybe I should start with this question. I don't know who wants to pick this one up. Hope, do you want to pick this one up, or Tony? I was seeing the other day, I'm a big follower of Tesla and this whole renewable thing, which is the session I was actually going to get into. There are some arguments being made by some people that we should not worry so much about the environment, that the West developed through coal and oil, and we should just get all our oil as quickly as possible, and not worry about renewables, not worry about the opportunities that those are bringing. But I know that governments, like in the UK, they're pumping a lot of money in green jobs, new jobs in this particular area. They're doing offshore wind, wind turbines. They're doing offshore wave energy. There's a huge amount of effort being put into solar. And these are countries that don't have as much sun as we do have here. So perhaps if I could bring Hope back in, what are your thoughts on this question in terms of, I know we're talking about extractives, we're extracting things from the earth. And of course, these will run out at some point. What are your thoughts on this? Should governments like Uganda, should individuals out there, should we be having a dual strategy where, yes, we get the oil out, we get all these minerals out, and hopefully we use them for very good, we put them to very good use, but should we also adopt a dual strategy where we begin to invest in where the future really is? I often get perturbed by the amount of pollution. I can't tell you, when I'm driving all these trucks behind, you see literally black smoke coming out. And this is the stuff that we're all breathing in, and no one is taking. So oil and gas has had a very bad image in that regard. What are your thoughts on this in terms of now that we're going to be pumping all this oil out? Do we need an alternative? And where are the opportunities in the alternatives? Is it in wind? Is it in solar? And if so, what are the incentives? Are there, for instance, free solar panels that I can get my hands on, given all this sun that we have? Hope.
Yes, very interesting question. Thanks, Dennis, and the colleague who asked it. One thing we must know about these natural resources that we keep talking about a lot is that they are finite, right? It's not, for instance, like oxygen. I know we had an oxygen crisis, right? But you still see that you can wake up guaranteed to breathe air that naturally comes to you, right? But for natural resources, the fact of the matter is that it's a delicate balance for any country that is resource rich. And as we work in development, we've been trying to demonstrate that even if there's all this exciting opportunity and value, right, it must be harnessed right, but sustainably, yeah? In terms of actually making sure that we do not compromise future generations, just that we live in the now, extract everything, use it, and move on. No. So that's why we come around and emphasize the issue of sustainability. And also you had me allude to the National Development Plan of Uganda. Because you see, advancement and development will not come out of the blue. There are certain infrastructure realities that exist that enable countries to actually be where they are in terms of the utilization of technologies, new machinery, new mineral resources and all that. For example, the demand for cobalt comes from the whole Tesla movement, for instance. But does Uganda have that kind of infrastructure able to sustain, for example, electronic cars? Because it's not a matter of producing it and putting green batteries, but how are you going to be recharging them? Can you sustain the supply and demand and all that? So I think it comes to just contextualizing this whole global movement within the local context of Uganda. I know Uganda, for instance, we have a very good and energetic renewable energy movement. Indeed, people are adopting solar, utilizing solar even for domestic and commercial purposes. You see a lot of support going into the recycling business, for instance. We are seeing a lot of investment in green businesses to avoid wasteful production, to avoid harmful production. So at our development stage, we realize that Uganda is actually privileged to be learning from people who have done it wrong, if I may say that. People who have developed at any cost are now paying a higher price in terms of actually undermining the biodiversity, the terrible health impacts, the loss of forest cover and all that. And we don't want to see Uganda going there. So that's why you see, for instance, that even, I think you remember the conversations around the environmental impact assessment for this whole, oil sector and the refineries. I think you remember the intense level of work and effort that had to go into ensure that despite Uganda's good efforts in extracting this oil and gas resource, it should be done right, not compromise our biodiversity, our well-being and future, right? So the short answer to this is that we have the liberty and privilege of more information right now. Uganda can easily re-strategize and align itself to the opportunities emerging in the renewable energy sector, and there are so many. But we also need to look into the behavior choices and changes we can also, take up at domestic level, societal level, community level, and all that. And in terms of the industrial extraction and utilization of all these minerals and materials that go into or feed into the, the renewable energy sector at that industrial level, I think that one we have to plug it or subject it to the kind of rigor that goes into the national development planning, because I'm sure our planners are aware of the current context. We have to look at our abilities. For instance, would it be wise for someone to invest in an electronic car business right now in Uganda? How are you going to guarantee the supply and maintenance of that? That's why it's important to do that kind of market study of the environment and see where the strategic investments are. I've been emphasizing strategic investments because as an entrepreneur, you're going to find that within no minute that you're part of an ecosystem, yeah? There are going to be policy encumbrances, or allowances that are going to allow you to do your work. There are many incentives, for instance, that are going into the solar energies, for instance, tax exemption and all that. It would make a smarter business choice for you to pursue that than pursuing, for example, a cobalt, license, because there are some kind of strategic embargoes on some kind of natural resources. That's why I told you at the beginning that it's important to scan the environment within which we are working. So there are very many incentives around green energies, many innovations. Many young people have made so much money. I think you know that the Ideathon plugs into what we know as the Youth for Business facility. I hope that colleagues on this call have plugged into that. And I know that in previous UNDP has tried to really showcase actually some of the kind of green idea businesses. You have people who are even inventing how you can recharge, our gadgets, how you can power entire buildings, how you can facilitate remote digital experiences based on actually some kinds of innovation on alternative energy sources, So those are the kinds of ideas that we are seeing come through. But indeed, for a business decision, it's important to know what is in place in terms of incentives, and also some of the strategic embargoes around some minerals and resources that are really kind of on a hold for now for extraction, So the future indeed is bright for green energies, but for the Uganda context, we need to always be sure we are aware of the extent to which we can explore those opportunities. But also I can tell you that at consumptive and domestic level, I've seen so much investment in alternative and green energies and businesses that are doing a lot of recycling, for example. We have zero waste production ideas, I'm sure. NASE, all the Accelerator Lab colleagues can even provide that information even beyond this call. We are seeing industries demonstrating that you can sustainably produce without harming the environment. You use the byproduct. Even people in extractives, waste management is a very good opportunity for most people. Recycling is a very good opportunity for most people that are invested in. So there's so much that is happening in that space between the extreme of the basics and the Teslas of this world. Within that kind of stretch, there's a lot more happening that Uganda is actually presenting a lot of good opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hope. Yes, that's a real moral dilemma, but you've amplified it. I think what we tend to focus on is local solutions for local problems and challenges. I mean, having a Tesla here, I'm not sure. We need to fix our potholes first, perhaps, and then we can talk about Teslas. There's a question here from Geraldine Sally, who was asking, I missed what mineral dressing was. I'm also a teacher at home and in between. I think very many people right now are doing exactly that, teaching and working and also following us. Mineral dressing is really value addition within the mineral sector. There was another question about, someone was asking what happened to all the tin that was in Chikagati. This is from Michael Mugoya to Naomi. What happened to the tin in Chikagati? The last time I visited the area, export of unprocessed tin had been banned by government. Did government finally get an investor to do the processing? Naomi, do you want to comment on that? Tin processing in Chikagati. I'm just going to go through the questions one by one. If my colleagues could help me upvote the questions, maybe I'll just do a quick round of the questions and assign them to the respective panelists, and then we can go through them one by one. There is a very interesting question from Professor Ernest Araho. Professor, thank you very much for following. How are you preparing the young Ugandans to pick the low-hanging fruits as startups in the oil and gas value and supply chains for sustainable entrepreneurship, especially with constraints of networks and capital? There are some keywords here. You can tell this is from an academic. Sustainable entrepreneurship, networks, capital. How are we doing that? I think the Ideathon is we're doing our bit by, in the first instance, providing grants that will help these young people. The UNDP has incredible networks within this space. I think Hope has alluded some of them, including the Youth for Business. They've done a lot of work. If you recall, Naomi also mentioned that UNDP has supported some government projects where some of these women we're talking about have been helped in terms of formalization. So in terms of networks and capital, I think we're on to a winning formula in terms of an ecosystem approach to addressing some of the challenges in this area. I mean, between the Ideathon between the UNDP, between the Youth for Business, between Stanbic Business Incubator. There's an interesting network where any young person can actually get support. Mawa Emmanuel Okang. Hello, I'm Emmanuel from Ajumani. May I know when the pitching date would be conducted? I'll respond to that one after this. Natwera Innocent, thanks for the session. How do we get to express our interest in offering services to this sector? Example, offer fumigation services. I think they mentioned that you need to be on this supplier database. Maybe one of my colleagues could put within the comment section a link to that supplier database. I've taken a look at it. It's actually quite straightforward, but as Hope mentioned, you need to formalize. Formalization might be the best way to get a deal, if at all. I was going to respond to this one from Galaxy Note 4. I don't know whose name that is. We always encourage people to use your real names because sometimes we want to get back to you at a personal level and give you support. But sometimes it's not helped by Galaxy or iPhone or something like that. So if you could tell us what your name is, it would be very helpful. I have had Tony Otoa saying services ring-fenced for locals. I have a fumigation company. It's probably the same guy. So again, go on to the links that are provided in the text message, as well as, and I think Tony mentioned quite a number of these ring-fenced services. Thomas Odolek Kawu, how are women supported to benefit from the mineral sector? Maybe we'll leave this one to Naomi. I think you alluded to some of the help that government is giving to, especially with the support from the UNDP, that you're giving to some of these women groups in terms of maybe helping them to formalize or something like that. So Naomi will respond to that, and Hope might throw some more light as well. Anyine Lewis is also sending another question to Naomi. I would like to ask if Uganda has lithium mineral element. This is one of the minerals that goes into batteries, I think. And he reckons Chira can help. Okay, Naomi can respond to this one, but I'm sure some simple Google might also help. Although saying that, I have read a report. I think if I'm not mistaken, it was authored by the UNDP, where you did some mapping of where these minerals are. So a link, I don't know if it was the UNDP, I can't remember, but I've seen a report somewhere where there is some information about which minerals are where and that kind of stuff. Maybe Hope you might have some documents that you can, or links that you can share in the chat boxes for the benefit of our individuals. I think we might have a Tesla in the making, if I'm not mistaken. Next question is Robert Mwesige. This one is for the attention of Tony. Uganda has been hailed, especially on the continent, for the national content policies that they have put in place to ensure that local participation of citizens in the oil and gas sector. What can we as a country leverage in this regard to creating lasting value for Ugandans from this sector? I think Tony did mention this at length by highlighting some of those areas that have been ring-fenced and sharing some of what we think are low-hanging fruits that you can participate in, but I'll let Tony make note of that one as well. Agustin Busimba, doesn't the issue of electrification compromise the oil sector? Then how can we go about it as Uganda sits in oil production? I'm not sure the question is very clear, but I think this is the same moral dilemma we're talking about. Do you focus on electric cars, or do you focus on the cars that use oil and gas? Maybe I should let our colleagues first respond to these questions, and I'll come back to the other questions. And if I could ask my colleagues to upvote the questions so that when I start going through the questions, I can begin with the most pressing ones. Shall we start with, let's start with Naomi. Naomi, there were some questions about the government, role of government, women. There was another question about Chikagati. My auntie used to live in Chikagati, but I never saw the teen. So do you want to respond to some of these questions, Naomi?
All right, thank you. Thank you, participants, for the questions. It's very good to know that Ugandans actually following in this conversation and are very interested in the sector, so that we can build the sector together as a whole. About the women, that came in when I was talking about the development minerals or construction materials. I need to make it so clear that we have a bill that is in place right now. And when Parliament sits and they approve it and the president signs it off, then of course it will become a law. Now in that, when it becomes a law, government will be regulating those building materials only for purposes, for commercial purposes. But if someone is just digging out sand at nearby well for just their domestic use or building a house, that one will not be regulated. But as long as it's for commercial purposes, like we have seen many foreigners coming in Uganda, extracting the sand in Dwela, the stones that are used for the road construction, those are huge projects now. Those need to be regulated. So there's a question in the chat of someone wondering if government will be that hard on the people. No, it won't be hard on, as long as it's for domestic use, there won't be any regulations to it as per se by law. But if it's for commercial use, definitely you will have to get a license for you to able to extract it on a large scale and also market it beyond even Uganda. And about the presence of lithium and all those other minerals, like I mentioned, Uganda is so blessed, extremely blessed to have all these minerals here. We have a mineral currency map. It's a public document. Anyone can type on Google, Uganda mineral currency map, you'll get it. Or you can go still to our website, the ministry website, or the Directorate of Geological Survey and Mines website. Still, you can find the mineral currency map of Uganda. This map shows the various minerals across the country in every region. So everyone from whichever part of the country will be able to know what are the minerals in my surrounding, or what minerals am I seated on. It's very important for us to go. It's a public document. You can still go and look at it. It will really give you all those details. And when we come into all the technology and all the gadgets, yes, we need these minerals, and the ministry has I can't say discovered because they've been here, but yes, government has looked out at several places that have these rare earth elements. Now, these rare earth elements are used in gadgets, phones, computers, screens, in any gadget. And we have all these minerals in Uganda. That's how beautiful it is. We have all these minerals in Uganda. But please, let's go to that map. Let's check out that map, and you'll be able to know what minerals are in which part of the country. And also to boost up that map, we have the ongoing, the geophysical airborne surveys that are ongoing in Karamoja. I know the population could have heard of the airborne geophysical surveys that are happening in Karamoja. And these are also going to boost up our map, because the map that we have currently, when it was being modified, that part was left out because of the insurgency that was happening then in that particular region. But with this project that the government is running now, together with the ministry, it's going to be beefed up. So let's look forward to the other minerals, the specifics that are in which place, especially in Karamoja region, since we have ongoing activities there. About the support of women in the sector, yes, government is still collaborating with all the development partners, especially UNDP, to support women. To start with is formalization. You cannot benefit from this sector until you are formalized, until you have all the legalities to participate. This goes also to the youth. Yeah, if you're going to participate in this business or in the oil and gas, generally the extractives, you need to have all the legalities. Go and register your business, have all those documentations together. Yes, so one thing that we are doing to support the women, one is to train them how they can get formalized. Under the Spotlight Initiative program, still under UNDP, we have trained across the country several women groups, on how to formalize, so that they are able to acquire licenses and they're able to extract those materials on a large scale. And still under this project, several mining groups are going to be women-led. In this case, women-led mining groups are going to acquire different equipments to support them. For example, the crushers, the stone crushers. Yeah, Dennis, you mentioned of those women that are, using the hammers to break down those stones. Some of these women groups, as long as they come together, they form associations, they get formalized, they're going to be supported. under the Spotlight Initiative program. They'll be given different tools to use to ease on their, on their work, because really the mining sector is an energy intensive sector, and the manpower is really needed so much, and the women to be supported, they really need to be given such things or such support so that they are able to compete favorably with the men along in the sector. I don't know if there is any other question that I missed out anywhere.
I think that was it for now. Thank you very much, Naomi. When do you expect this bill to be passed? I know that these days tend to take too long. Or should the young people who are on the call, do they want to take advantage of this opportunity before the bill gets passed to do as much extracting as possible because of the potential restrictions? But maybe that's a discussion for another, maybe in the subsequent part of the session. Just to let everyone know that we're trying to be very, to reach as many people as possible. We have sign language on standby, but the Zoom link also has auto texts. So you might be seeing some text, but sometimes it gets my Chichiga accent wrong. And sometimes we use words like ahamabare and it can't figure out what ahamabare is. So please bear with us if it puts on things that you can't quite understand. Let me come back to you, Hope. You had some questions that were sent to you. But before I do that, I noticed that Dawn has joined us. Dawn West Jabinina, thank you very much for joining us. However late, let me just go through the few questions between Hope and Tony, and then I'll get back to you on the development minerals. But in your absence, colleagues, especially Naomi and Hope, have dug so deep into these development minerals, so much so that we are almost now experts. Over to you, Hope. Some of the questions that were sent to you.
Yes, I saw questions, for example, about the women in lead from Thomas, I think. And there's a lot that women can do. Like I told you, I can give you a story of, is a company that I know, for instance, that was working with stone in terms of designing buildings and all that, right? Very beautifully. And then one of the co-owners is a lady, and surprisingly, I saw her investing so much in these ceramic pots, for instance. And now I've reached a point, whichever building I go to, I can know that this is from this person. So she has tapped into her natural aptitude on the decoration, or the waste product that we think is waste product from the decorative works on buildings. For her, she has started another arm of business in terms of very decorative ceramic pots and stones, and there's a way they are refined into different shapes. It's amazing. And I think that arm of their business probably is funding the other arm, you know. I'm not trying to stereotype women in terms of that, but the ingenuity and creativity that I've seen women actually do. Another story I would want to share is women quarry, they work in an Entebbe quarry. They just, through this project, we at UNDP, the one supported by the European Union and the Africa Caribbean Group of States, they went and visited another quarry and noticed that for other quarries that were advanced, they were even segregating their products in terms of size and shape, right? So this women group went and did the same at their quarry in Entebbe, and I can tell you right now, people who are taking advantage of them in terms of just buying everything at a flat rate are now shocked when they see the price differentiation that has come across in terms of the product. But also this has made the women, you know, get more business and income. Also, we look at linkage social services, because we know that if you look at, again, we did some study in the women in mining and extractives generally. You find that there are kind of bottlenecks in terms of the skills, the ability, the time that they are spending on businesses, whichever, if they're working in oil and gas, in mining. Sometimes they have other competing priorities in terms of the domestic commitments and societal limitations on them. It's a lot. But what we realize that in this sector, in the extractive sector, there's a lot of support that is being available to women to link them to other social supportive services, be it in addressing the risks around gender and around gender-based violence. We know that's true. You had issues around children and childcare. There's a lot. Not everyone, for example, can afford to take their kids to nursery school off-site. So we've seen interventions that are delivering social services to actually mining sites and communities. So there's a lot of support out there for women to tap into. And I think that leads me to the next question, where someone was asking, where do we start? Are these associations known? If it's my business, where do I start? Surprisingly, one thing we have noticed is that there is little awareness of these business opportunities at local government level. If you went and asked a district commercial officer or natural resource officer to show you their work plan, probably their oversight and support kind of glosses over people in minerals, oil, and gas. They don't know how to interface with the community, or it's not on their radar that this is actually an economic group that needs kind of support. So we've been encouraging people to really make sure that does your natural resource officer know you at the district, does a commercial officer know you? Because once you're registering and interfacing with them, you can't believe the knowledge these people have also in terms of opportunities. We are here talking about, of course, UNDP support and projects, but there's much more out there from other partners, be it private sector companies. These oil and gas companies have many social responsive activities going on, but it's only once you interface with the custodian of the mandate, to deliver social services, that you're able to know what else is out there in terms of financing, in terms of grants to really buy equipment, in terms of training and learning opportunities, in terms of exchange learning. You cannot believe that it will take sometimes you to get out of your comfort zone and go to another district to know the potential of the resource you have just from learning with others. But we've noticed that there's a disconnect. And I think, Dennis, you got the point well on information. Indeed, there's a lot of information at those district offices. I think agriculturists are kind of lucky because their information seems to be much there and people can access it. The people in extractives, I would really encourage them, start local. Once you're known locally in your area of operation and you're compliant, basic registration and operational licenses, then they are going to start engaging you. We have youth groups that trained on once they got a business plan, for example, I think it's in Lira. Now they have contracts, from local governments to deliver a lot on the roadworks. But before, these people were there and people were driving past them because they didn't have a name, they were not organized, they had never presented themselves, So I think also one smart piece of advice I can give to young people is make sure you are very known within your local operating environment. Yeah, you're able to access more opportunities, but also there's a lot of free technical oversight that is given, indeed, by government, by other actors, NGOs, civil society organizations, so many people. But are you known when they are mapping the service sector? Are you known? If you're not, then that brings a challenge. Someone had also, I saw a question on digital opportunities. Incidental, of course, like I said, we'll be publishing some of those opportunities available, but there's also so much that is available to do within the digital space in extractive in that context. For example, if I'm here at my house and I want to buy something, I would have to know someone to make a phone call to. There's literally no online market space, yeah, for either the products or services. Honestly, there is none in terms of something that is there out there and is usable and is well known. So if you're a young person and you really know and have heard of this gap, what can you do to plug it? You understand? We know that with this lockdown, moving is really on a need-to basis. So why should I sit here and I have to first call 3 people, to link me to other people? By the time I get someone supposed to deliver for me a service or product, it takes like a whole day. So there is really a big opportunity for a digital market space, right? For young people. That area is literally virgin here. The online catalogs, most of the good companies, for instance, have no digital presence at all. So as a young person, it can't stop you from walking to this business owner and say, I'm seeing all this beautiful work you're doing. I can help you access a bigger and wider market. I can help you communicate this better. For you, you're learning your digital skills to really already shine a bolder light on an already existing and thriving platform. For services, how will people know what you have if you're not online? You can say, for me, I'm going to work with young people who want to really express themselves in terms of communicating what they are able to, targeting the extractive sector. There's need for surveyors, guides, teachers. You had Tony talk about all these opportunities that are moving to Hoima, and I think even Dennis alluded to it. But if I'm an investor, do you think I have the local network to really look for people through phone calls? No. So if there was an online directory, in terms of the kind of information we need, it would be good. So the opportunities are there. It's us to really be smart about it, to be innovative, and also don't be shy to transfer knowledge. You know, for example, I've seen so many brilliant apps for agriculture in terms of, I mean, I used to live abroad, and even for people who can't read, if they knew they wanted red peppers, for instance, there's color-coded search. Someone says, I want red vegetables, you look for that, green ones, you know. So do not exclude, and we talk about inclusivity. If someone cannot read or do complicated phone maneuvers, for you as a young person, what solution are you bringing on board, you know? Some people have the aptitude, knowledge, and skills, but they don't even know how to engage with, you know, the technocrats. As a young person, you can come and actually plug that service gap. So let people also look into the service sector itself surrounding the mining, oil and gas sector, and there is a lot of opportunity. Ask the questions, engage in the right spaces, and I'm sure you'll be telling a different story down the road. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Hope, for your deep insights into this space. I'm actually getting a lot of interest myself in this this space, this minerals and oil and gas. I will be bringing on Don very shortly, but I know that Tony, you want to leave us at the top of the hour. Can I just bring you in? I think there were some questions directed at you specifically. Do you want to come on and respond to them very briefly, and then we can let you go?
Thank you, Dennis.
Tony?
I'm sorry I have to leave. I'm sorry I have to leave now, not at the top of the hour now, because my next engagement starts at 10:55. But I just wanted to say, in regard to that, you know, oil and gas and all of these things, just like Naomi has said or Hope has said, all come back to one thing. Are you ready to do business the right way? Because you see, there are no shortcuts. And when you also understand these sectors, you'll understand that health and safety are very, very essential. In the mineral sector, what we're trying to push for is health and safety standards. If you do not have health and safety standards, we are doomed. So you find people engaging with a lot of things like mercury and all of these things, but we need to find ways in which we can regulate these things. So your business has to adapt to what is right, what is normal for you to, what is right and what is normal according to the standards within the industry for you to be able to engage. Number two, formalization, like my colleagues have said. If your business is not formal, you can only work or operate at a certain standard. That is the most you can go. Now, if you want to be $1 million company, that is your choice. But if you want to be a 5 million shilling company, that is also your choice. So formalization will support you in knowing where you want to go or what standards you want to work with. So very, very key. Number three, which I think also is very important, but again, tied to health and safety standards, compliance. Compliance. As a business, are you compliant? Are you doing things the right way? Because by doing things the right way, you have opportunities of visibility of the bigger contracts. I was happy when I had, Hope talk about, some suppliers who are now working with the local governments. They went the extra mile to make their businesses compliant and create them as businesses that can actually jump onto these opportunities. Small by small. You don't have to do it all. You don't have to do it in one night, but bit by bit, step by step, this can actually happen. Then again, finally, what I can end with, Dennis, is by saying we have been handed a great opportunity. We can complain about our country, our government, but to show me a country where the citizens have never complained or do not complain or have no complaints against their country or their government. We all complain. But in this sector, we have been given a great opportunity in the sense that we have laws and policies that we can hold the government accountable to. And for the first time ever, we can brilliantly say or call them out if they do not do things the way they're supposed to be done. But they have gone the extra mile to make sure that We know what is ring fence for Ugandans. We know what is what we have to do as companies, as businesses, as entrepreneurs, and we also know what avenues are there to support us in becoming good businesses. Now, the business incubator is here for that purpose. We're here to support businesses to become better. We do this free of charge, by the way. If I tell you that our program costs $2,500 to $3,500 per business, we do this for free. And we're not doing it just for the sake of it, but we're doing it because we believe in Ugandan entrepreneurs. We believe in Ugandan people or businesses, but more so, we believe in the Ugandan youth. You understand? So if we can push this, and if the businesses can also understand that this is important, I think it's high time that we work together. Collaboration instead of working in isolation. That is what's going to make us benefit from this sector. So I thank you so much, and thank you for the great opportunity, Dennis, the guys at NASE, Hope, Naomi, Mike, and Don. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you physically when all of this hullabaloo of lockdown is over. I know it might not be over. People are saying, oh, Mzee, agenda kuongera yo. I hope it doesn't, because in the business world, it's really choking. So I hope that things normalize, and please, 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 if you can, and you can afford it, or you can have access to it, get vaccinated. Let's get back ourselves to our new selves or our new normal, but I hope it's a great normal. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Tony, for joining us, for sparing time this morning, and for your insights. And what was interesting was your last point about collaboration and this ecosystem approach. Maybe for the benefit of the participants, this is all part of the UNDP, which supports the Youth for Business, under which the Stanbic Business Incubator is also partnering. So is NACE with the Ideathon, and some of these ideas that will come through will probably end up in Tony's direction. So thank you very much, Tony. We'll let you go. We will be finishing this session at 11, but what we've done in the past is we've stayed behind because the questions have been too many. But I'm also trying to get Don back on. Don had a challenge with his camera, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So he is going to get back on very shortly. And I think as punishment for his joining us late, I might drag him to stay on for just a few more minutes. Let me just go through very quickly some of the questions. I think there was quite a number of questions, most of which were answered. I think Don is trying to get hold of me. So could I ask one of my colleagues, perhaps Paula, to reach out to him or Albert and establish if he's having connection issues, because his screen was a bit blurred. This is from Matthias Katetejirwe. Hello. Is there a component in UNDP that helps unsuccessful candidates to polish their write-ups? Several development mineral services within Isinjiro and Barara that I need to get right. This is a very interesting one. And part of what the Ideathon will be doing is to help you articulate your value proposition, to help you to explain this idea. But also I know that as part of the Youth for Business, there have been similar opportunities to help you. Often when individuals pitch their ideas, maybe because of the number of applications, sometimes you don't get a lot of feedback. But if you have supplied your idea through the Ideathon, we hope to get to everyone with some feedback. And looking at today's numbers, which is around 3,300, it's going to be one hell of a long amount of work, but we'll get to you at some point. So I'll answer that one very quickly. But of course, if my colleagues at the UNDP are able to shed more light on this, they are more than welcome to do so. The other one is from Bruno Ignatius. Given that most of the participants in the first stage of the sector are not highly educated, what strategies have been put in place to communicate to them about the legal and policy requirements in this sector? That's a very good question that does not only apply to this particular sector. We've seen a lot of this in all the other areas, and the UNDP has been very particular and keen to make sure that this program goes to everyone, including Omuntu wa Wansi, as they like to call it. So it's not something that we have ignored. Indeed, we have experts in intellectual property, for instance, that are going to help us to make sure that all the legal areas are covered for your idea. Once we've gotten you on board as part of our incubation includes having experts on board to provide this kind of stuff. There's going to be sections on legal and policy kind of stuff. There's going to be sections on financial literacy. sections on intellectual property. There's quite a number of areas, including things like environmental stuff. So there's quite a lot of topics that we're going to be focusing on. So as long as you're part of the Ideathon and you go all the way to the end, you should get some of this information. NASE, kindly make a recap on how we can make an update on our ideas. Once again, thank you for the opportunity. Yes, you should have had an email. Oh, fantastic. Good to see you, Don. Don, this is a better, at least we can see you now. Good to see you. I'll come back to you shortly. Let me go through some of the questions. A recap on how we can make an update on the ideas. You should have, if you've registered your idea, you should have had an email. I think it went out last night, where everyone was invited to log on to this database that I've been telling you about. But in case you haven't had your email, you can go onto the website, undp.nase.co.ug. On the top right corner, there is a login option, and that should take you to perhaps the first page you saw when you registered. Put in your same credentials, and you'll have access to the back end, and you should be able to get your idea. Part of the reasons we have these thematic sessions is initially you start with a simple idea, but after this session, you are wiser, you have more information, and you may want to update your idea or tweak it in one way, shape, or form. So this is the purpose of these particular sections. The next one is, good morning, this is Opio Kennedy. Apparently the government is moving to formalization of artisanal mining and certification sensitive, blah, 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 blah. What role has the UNDP plan to play in supporting the government to this cause? Maybe I'll leave Naomi to respond to that one. I think you've already answered this, if I'm not mistaken, the support that you've had from the UNDP, but you're welcome to throw more light on that one. This is a question I would like to send straight to Dawn. But maybe for the benefit of the panelists, we normally want to finish at 11. And what has been happening is that we find that we usually have lots of questions and young people are very hungry. So I've been staying behind for 1 hour to respond to almost all of them. And needless to say, I'm not an expert in this space. So I hope, Dawn, you have maybe another 45 minutes in you, but also the other panelists are welcome to stay behind to answer some of these questions. But let me send this one to Dawn. The question is from James Muhindo. Thank you, panelists, for the very insightful views. My comment and question is that the major barriers to entry in the oil and gas and mining sector are high startup costs and high fixed operating costs, which disadvantage smaller enterprises at the expense of the more established companies. What mechanisms are being put in place to tame these barriers to entry? James Muhindo is the National Coordinator of the Civil Society Coalition on Oil and Gas. Very good question. Over to you.
Good morning, Dennis and my fellow panelists. Apologies for tuning in late. I was actually in early, but I think we're having some connection issues. I'm up country right now. I lost 2 family members in a week due to COVID. So everyone in here, please, we are in a real pandemic. If it's not visited your home, please listen to the government, stay home, stay safe. It's terrible out there. Dennis, responding to Dennis's, to Mohindo's question. Well, the mining sector, the oil sector are quite expensive ventures. That's why you find that for the sake of Uganda and other oil-rich and mineral-rich countries, it's always international oil companies, it's always international mining companies that pull resources together and have to invest. And these resources are pulled from the general public, just like you and me. So for that one, for starters, there are no shortcuts. But I think not to worry the youth that NASE and UNDP is focusing on. I would want to start by pointing out that the mineral sector internationally is one of the sectors that have limited skill sets. I want to repeat that, that has limited skill sets. So to the youth there is quite a variety of skills that you need to focus on. And I can assure you, if Naomi will be, and Hope will bear witnesses, that if you're to count the number of mining engineers, for example, that we have in this country, you'll be shocked that it may not go even beyond 100. It was not until recently that we had some Busitema University in the Eastern Uganda starting to offer mining-related courses. But before all, if you look at all the senior mining engineers we have in this country, they have either been trained in Dar es Salaam University or any other international university. So for starters, there is a huge gap when it comes to skills. Now, for the youth who are out there and wondering what you want to do, I would invite you to pick interest in the mining sector. You could be a mining geologist. You could be a mineral dresser like our colleague here, Naomi. You could be a mineral economist. You could be a geologist. You could be, an earth mover. You could. There is quite. I can't list all the skills. And in Uganda, this is an opportunity for us as Ugandan and specifically to the youth. The mining sector is moving towards technology. So you following this sector is quite very helpful right now for your future. I have colleagues, just last year, I had one of the, I actually call her the best female mining engineer in this country, who has spent most of her life working with the miners in Mubende, the artisanal and small-scale miners in Mubende, as well as those in Eastern Uganda. And I had an opportunity because at the time I was an alumni ambassador for Australia, where I did my master's in mining as well. And I was asked to select someone who I thought should benefit from that. As we speak right now, this lady, I managed to get her a full scholarship. There were actually 2 Ugandans. I managed to get 2 scholarships, but I want profile, just for the benefit of our listeners here. I want to profile this lady. She went in Australia using her experience working with artisanal miners, and she's excelling. She's the #1, student in her class, in her master's class. And as a result, she was offered an opportunity to work with one of the largest mining companies in the world, which is Rio Tinto, if not the largest, because you have Rio Tinto, you have BHP. She was offered an opportunity to work in the holidays, and she impressed Rio Tinto. She impressed Rio Tinto, and before she could even finish her master's course, which is ending sometime, I think in September this year, Rio Tinto offered her a contract. Are you listening to me? Rio Tinto offered her a contract before she could even finish her master's program, and they are asking her, is she willing to work for them, because they have picked interest in her and they would want to retain her. And guess how much they're offering her? $150,000 US. $150,000 US. Multiply that by 3,550 Ugandan shillings and know how much she's earning in form of Ugandan shillings. I'm profiling this lady to encourage and motivate the youth in Uganda that this is one of the untapped sectors in this country from a skill sets, point of view. Moving away from that.
Yeah, go on. I was going to say we have to consider some career change, but carry on nonetheless.
Yeah, it's never too late, Dennis. Yeah, it's never too late. So moving away from that, I know my colleague Hope and Naomi have spoken a lot about developmental minerals. I would want to add my voice to that. And I may be somehow also responding to James, also my colleague at Cisco, the coordinator there, on how to, for the youth that we are targeting, and NASA is targeting an UNDP, how to start. We've worked with youth, with Hope, building capacities of artisanal miners across the country, building their skills on how to fine-tune, their products. Developmental minerals, to me, are huge. The potential for developmental minerals in Uganda is extremely huge. And that is a sector for you and me that we can actually, invest in. You actually do not need a lot of startup capital to engage in developmental minerals. And they are called developmental minerals for one main reason, that they are a key driver to the sustainable development of most developing economies. And Uganda is one of those. If you look around your house where you are seated right now, you will discover that you're actually surrounded by these development minerals. You must have tiles maybe in your house. If you don't have tiles, you have cement in your house. You must have some rocks. You must have some aggregates around there. If you're expensive and classy, like my colleague Dennis here, you might have even marble in your bathroom and all over. And these are minerals that are spread across the entire country. Uganda is endowed with a lot of developmental minerals, and that was one of the reasons that UNDP picked on Uganda to be a pioneer implementing country for the development minerals program. I'll highlight for you some of the areas that you can think of. You have aggregates, and coming to that, we have over 10, listed or planned cities across this country. And I'm sure each of the member comes from, right now I'm in Mbara town. You wouldn't imagine how fast developing this city is, and the huge potential. We did, as Africa Center for Energy and Mineral Study, policy, we did a study and discovered that the city was having a shortage of supplies for aggregates, supplies for sand, which is another development mineral. And there are two main supplies to Mbara city. The first supply comes from Isinjiro, which is down south towards the border with Rwanda and Tanzania. Then you also have another supply over 40 kilometers in Intungamo town, which supplies. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? In Kampala, a ton of aggregates goes for 60,000. In Mbara here, a ton goes for between 80,000 to 100,000 Ugandan shillings. So for all of you who are stuck in Kampala, because you got an education, you got a degree, and you think your future lies in the city, in the major city, Kampala, boy, girl, you're missing it. There is a huge potential back in the villages. Our villages are developing, our rural urban centers. We have urbanization taking place in this country. The whole of Africa is urbanizing at a very fast rate. And who is there to come, meet the opportunities that come with urbanization, increased demand for residential accommodation, increased demands for construction materials. All these are opportunities that you that have got this opportunity to participate in this NASE and UNDP program can move back to your rural countries, move back to your rural villages and find these opportunities and see how you tap into them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Don. I had mentioned before that I was very privileged to have piggybacked or hitchhiked a lift with you, and you showed me 1 or 2, 3 queries. I was actually blown away by the opportunities in that space. Unbelievable. especially if you look at the way our cities are developing, like Mbarara in particular, I was equally blown away. It's no wonder that some of these minerals are more expensive in those ends than they are here. But we had spoken earlier about the difference in the prices from the rock itself and these women who are actually breaking these rocks to the users, people who are actually building. We'll come back to that one later. But I just wanted to check with my fellow panelists, Naomi and Hope in particular, one, whether you still want to spend the next maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes behind, or if you have other commitments and you want to leave, I think the time is up. At 11, we would not hold you hostage, but if you want to stay, you can let me know and then we can carry on. Can I just check with you, Hope, you want to stay for a few more minutes?
I think my time could be done because of other pressing commitments.
Okay, so yeah. Can we let you have your last words to our young people before we leave? And can I check with Naomi as well? Do you want to stay behind for a few minutes or your time is done as well? Naomi, you're muted. Okay, as Naomi figures out the unmute button, Hope, your last thoughts to our participants today.
Yeah, thank you. I think Naomi was trying to say she's going to stay behind. If I
fantastic.
Mind. Yeah, and would appreciate that maybe to tie the loose ends around maybe what I'm going to say. But for me, my parting shot is indeed that from our side, as we sit and collaborate with public, private sector, mobilize resources, deliver capacity building, make a passionate case for young people in the sector, I would just want to encourage young people to meet us halfway, yeah? In practical terms, because sometimes I can give you another one last story. I like telling stories because, you know, it brings this reality home. One time we were in training in Ugulu, I think, and we were with these miners for 5 days. And then I think on the last day of the training, as they had been certified, that they had learned a lot of health, safety, enterprise management, and all those beautiful things. Guess what? The group split and we saw them very anxious and agitated. We were like, what is up? What's happening? And they said, can you imagine the district has just given away our quarry, our land, just like that. Yet my grandmother left it to me, all those nice sentimental things I told you. But when we went to really actually find out what happened, I'm sure Naomi is going to guide. I think she can talk a lot more about the licensing, the principle first come, first serve. You apply properly for a license without using shortcuts, but following the right protocols and all that. But you know, the principle is this person, this other investor had gone and applied for a license the right way. And of course, the ministry gave the license over that site. So even if these people said we had been working here for over, I don't know, hundreds of years, this is my third generation here, you know, the law and the industry and the practice, unfortunately, is not that sentimental. And Don is a lawyer, I'm sure he's going to tell you how very impersonal the law can be. So what I'm trying to tell our colleagues and young people is that meet all this sector support and energized nurses, the DONs, the Stanbics, the ministry, meet them halfway. Let's do our part. Put your house in order. Some of these it's more 5,000 you registered. I don't know the license fees, Naomi can share more, but even they are very friendly for Ugandans, you know. So if you're an association, a youth group, you're a business, you want to pursue contracts, but you have no paperwork, I don't think anyone is going to award you a contract on sentiment. So me, I'm saying and assuring young people that there's this whole opportunity out there. We are doing so much. We are training, mobilizing resources. We are actually publishing more innovation challenges, you know, coming up shortly. We are talking to people to really make sure they invest, design, financing products. But where are you in all this? Is this opportunity going to come and go to the usual suspects who are ready, or are you going to align yourself? The second piece, to get organized. The second piece of advice is get out there and network also. I'm sure people have seen and learned so much from interfacing with people on this kind of programs, but take it a step further, reach out to people, follow up, and know that there's someone out there doing the same thing you're doing or even better, and you can learn and collaborate. You know, again, is it 2018, 2019, some Ugandans lost a very big limestone supply contract because some other person who went and lobbied for a contract could not in time mobilize fellow miners in those limestone areas to actually come together and meet their quotas in their contract. They didn't know where to go, and then the ones whom they reached out to, they couldn't trust each other, they couldn't negotiate better because there's a lot of question and suspicion in no business, right? So in all that chaos, of course, they lost the contract, just like that. So sometimes you just need to really reach out to others and see how you can coalesce to get the big deals coming in. The third bit I can also share is that inform yourselves. I think lack of information, lack of knowledge is no longer an excuse. And you don't have to be in a UNDP training, you don't have to be in a NASE training, you don't have to be on one Zoom call. The information is out there, honestly. Let's be proactive and get to it, because, you know, there are certain spaces that you're going to be making a case, applying for support, wanting to be added on a team, whether to deliver a service, design a product, convince someone to give you a deal, and for sure you will have to know what you're talking about. And there are no shortcuts there. Also, you must invest the time to actually research and equip yourself with the right information, so that when you're actually talking about your idea, it's really coming from an informed point of view. Like I said, passion is not enough sometimes. Get passionate, get innovative, but also, you know, enrich your knowledge and understanding. All successful entrepreneurs will tell you how many books they have read, how many talks they have been in, webinars, but just to learn, yeah? So that's the last bit I could say. And also the final one on the UNDP, I had people asking about opportunities, what's out there. Like I shared, we have the strategy to formalize and the artisan and small scale mining sector. We are already rolling it out. If it wasn't for COVID, Ministry of Energy and Ministry of Trade are actually going in the field to really support this formalization efforts to deliver these services closer to the people, the local government. So that's happening. And of course, there are also these grant facilities that are available. People should really feel free to apply. And some of the innovation challenges we publish have actually very informative webinars attached, so people can actually ask the right questions. So that's what I can say for now. And I really want to thank my fellow panelists and the participants for a very active and vibrant session for today morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hope, for sparing time to join us this morning, for your wonderful insights and expertise. I've learned a lot today, actually. So thank you. And I know the great work that you've been doing in the background with the UNDP and this whole mineral areas, and your passion clearly comes through. So thank you. I think we're very happy and privileged to have had you this morning. Thank you. Have a good day. Naomi, I think you've been able to figure out the mute and unmute button. Are you staying with us for a while, or do you also want to give your parting shots? Then I can hold Don hostage because he's the one who came late, and we can go through the next questions in the next few minutes. Naomi? Yeah, and I think one of the, sorry, before you come in, one of the things that Hope talked about was this role of government and maybe some of the things that you have in the pipeline. I did mention earlier about whatever is going through the Houses of Parliament and so on and so forth. So maybe you want to tie some of those loose ends for the benefit of our listeners.
Thank you so much, Dennis. I think it was a question from one of the participants of what's the role of UNDP in all the policies that government is coming up with. UNDP has been very supportive to the ministry, right from the review and the coming up with the new regulation, the mining regulation, the policy that we have of 2018, and then now the mining bill that soon when we, I hope all this comes to an end and we have the parliament settle so that they can debate on this so that we come to a conclusion and have the final law. Probably it should be a 2021 law. I really hope that we conclude it this year. But UNDP has been very supportive in terms of mobilization, getting more information, getting the Ugandans, yeah, the real users in this sector, the participants in this sector involved, you know, the stakeholder engagements have been really very supportive in this. At least in every region, we have been there, you know, in consultations with the locals of what do you think about this? What do you think about this change? How should we make it better? And really the community has been very involved in this. Making it, Don was talking about the mineral sector, and I think it was a response to someone who mentioned that, you know, it's really a very expensive venture. Yes, it is, but as government we have put in place particular licenses that are very favorable for Ugandans, very favorable for Ugandans. And this is one that we refer to as a location license. Yeah, you don't have to go through all the stages that the other huge companies that have to do. But as long as you have the capacity, you know, you're able to run this license. Yeah. You have the capacity. It is really a very cheap one. Like I can mention, let me just look up here. I'll just the sum I can say. Within probably a total of 3 million shillings, a Ugandan is able to acquire a location license. Yeah? And that means if it's a company, you must be registered. This is something that we've been emphasizing all through. You must be legal, you must be compliant. So for the youth that are out there, one, with this kind of license, they can apply as individuals. You know, they can apply as individuals or as a company. As an individual, you just need a national ID. It's that simple. You need a national ID, you need to fill up a few forms, and now it's even made easier. You apply online. You don't have to come all the way to Entebbe to apply. You apply online and all the approvals are done online, and it's still you will confirm your payment online. It has been made that easy. So the youth should not only think that this sector is only for the big players. They can start here and keep building up. And also this takes me to collaborations. It's very important for us to think big, to think of partnerships. Yeah, if you work in isolation, there is a limit so you can run. But if you bring on, you know, you maximize on the different synergies, we can go so far, very, very far. When we talk about the development minerals, in one of the trainings that we had recently in Kasese, we're training the women-led groups in different things concerning value addition, formalization, many aspects. And one thing that we really stood out for me is when we sat together and told them, okay, this group, you're focusing on stones. This group, for you guys, are interested in the sand. Yeah. What if we think of coming together? We make a cooperative. Yeah. This association is in this cooperative. The other association is also in this cooperative. And we are building products, new products. So when the local government has a contract out there for either upgrading a road or things like that, or building structures here and there, this cooperative is able to compete because they have combined the synergies. So this is something that the youth need to think about. The idea of working in isolation is not going to help us move fast as the youth. We need to collaborate. We need to, this goes beyond even just the Ugandans. You can think of other companies, see how you can attract a foreign company to come and partner with you here in Uganda. That means as you as an individual, as the youth that is here, have your paperwork ready. Have all the information ready so that you're able to market this idea that you have to attract a foreign partner to join you, because this, the law allows. Yeah, so it's there is really so much that the youth can engage in. Just like I know we have so many misconceptions about the whole sector, but everyone can start wherever they are. When we look at development minerals, they are around us. You don't have to travel much. They are around us. Just thinking of how creative you can be. Look at the quarries. Most of them are occupied by women, yeah, who have not gone so much in education and all that. And the youth feel this is really dirty work, they cannot be involved in there. They would prefer being somewhere out in the market, in a clean office and all that. But what if they brought that innovation of how can I make this a better place? How can I upgrade this group, this association of these women so that I can tap into this resource?
Thank you.
As the youth. So it's really, there is really so much. And partnerships, collaborations, I think for me, it's the way to go for the youth.
Thank you very much, Naomi, for your parting shots. And I thank you so much, by the way, for sparing the whole morning. Actually, we've been talking since 9. I just hadn't realized. No wonder I'm desperate for a coffee. So I won't keep you for far too long. I'll let you go, but thank you very much for enriching our panel. And I think we will be sharing, there will be a lot of information for the benefit of the participants that will be going out towards the end of this week. All these sessions are being recorded. So if I could ask one of my colleagues to share in the chat our YouTube channel where all these are captured, you can go back and listen in. I've seen some of those questions. So Naomi, we'll let you have a good day. Dawn, I'm just going to go through some of these questions. I think I have about 14 pending questions. I'll try and you and I go through them very quickly together. So if you'd like to get a pen and a piece of paper, sometimes they can be repetitive, but I'll do my best to rush through them as quickly as possible. And if I could ask my colleagues as well to help me upvote them so that I deal with the most important ones first. Dawn, if you're still there, because your video has disappeared, but let me go through the questions in the meantime. This one is from Nobo Akandinda. Good morning to you. I'm Nobo Akandinda from Kampala. What are the opportunities for a startup that is venturing into renewable energy, specifically the solar energy sector? Is the possibility of setting up a solar farm feasible or cost-effective in this economy? What could be the opportunities or setbacks? Thank you very much. So that's a question, Dawn, for the solar industry. There's a lot of excitement about this industry. I've seen some huge solar parks, you know, like square miles and miles and miles of this, and tagging into the grid. But I don't think I've seen one in Uganda. So maybe, Dawn, you might be aware of one or two of those. There's another Techno PP7E DLAI. Please, guys, can you kindly use your names? You know, it's very helpful for us to know who you are so that we can be able to support you. So for that matter, I'm not going to respond to this question. Are you going to talk about renewable energy or is it about oil and gas? Yes, we're going to talk about renewable energy. Renewable energy is big. We're already talking about things like solar, wind, and panel. I'd actually hope to have a renewable energy expert, but they weren't feeling well, I think, due to COVID, so they didn't quite make it. So I apologize for that. But what would be helpful is if you shared your idea and we figure out what it is, because we have a decent amount of experts between NASE and the UNDP to help support your idea. Masereka Hagai is saying, what's lacking in Uganda for the government not to construct a solar plant in district with too much sunshine? Maybe, Dawn, you might help us with this one. My understanding is that with solar, you actually don't need a lot of sunshine. You need a type of sunshine or just the right amount of sunshine, or it's the angle, I'm not sure. But given that Uganda is along the equator, I would have thought that we should have a lot of solar plants and things like that. But we also do have a lot of hydroelectric. Maybe that's why we haven't been forced to go into that. But there's another question on solar. The next question is from Agustin Bosimba. Indeed, these sessions are very informative and interesting. In my portfolio, I had not thought about this sector. Wow, I should. That's really very good feedback, Agustin. And we found some of the participants have been surprised by some of the interesting content that they've learned. Professor Ernest Abaho, I think the young people need to be mentored and coached about legalities and administrative issues for compliance and protection against sharks. Very true. And NASE is doing something about that as part of our incubation. Mohammed Kafuma to Madam Naomi. Madam Naomi has already left, so we can't respond to this one because it's a government-related question. Joshua Sabiti, thank you so much, all of you. For me, I feel really honored to be part of the UNDP's project's beneficiaries. I could never thank them enough. Our company, Chogo Mazinga, has benefited from the various trainings conducted, touching many areas, chiefly in enterprise development, health and safety, gender issues, value chain, and general networking. We've also been given grants, one for buying machinery to do recycling and our waste stone dust, and the second for training and imparting skills into the youth. Now, anyone who's on this call, including my colleagues at the UNDP, Bana, Hatija, and all the others, should be smiling really now by looking at some of the feedback from some of the people that the organization has helped. If I'm not mistaken, I remember I was a judge on one of the panels where Joshua and the team actually won these grants. So there is a lot of support for young people. Please do go ahead and submit your ideas and we'll send you in the right direction. Next question, is electricity generation sector covered under oil and gas? I'm seeking areas to represent new generation technologies. It's an interesting one. We'll talk about that very briefly. What is the timeline for the UNDP NASE innovation programs? The deadline is this weekend for you registering your idea, and then we'll have 1 week break, and then we'll resume the master classes the week after that. And after that, we'll have the finalists who will have won the grants. Can one hand be more than, yes, you can hand in more than one idea, that is true. Nice, thank you. I've received the email to research. Yes. Someone is saying, Tyrell, can you share something about urban development? Yes, there will be a session on urban development, actually tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. So look out for that one. You can go on our website. You should find a lot of information there, which is undp.nase.co.ug. I'm sure my colleagues would have been sharing this website as well as our YouTube channel in the chat messages. How about Adrian? Thanks for the email. They sent in 2 ideas. How do I go about this? You should receive an email allowing you to log into your platform where you can update your idea, and you'll hear more from the panelists, sorry, from the judges. So I think that's it. Dawn, there were some questions directed, and those are our last questions for the benefit of the listeners. One about solar, I think. Do you want to respond to the questions, please, Dawn?
Yeah, sure, Dennis. I think there are about 3 questions. I'll start from the last question. Is electricity generation covered under the oil and gas sector? Definitely not. Maybe for clarity to members, the oil and gas sector is an independent sector. It's not a mining sector because you do not mine oil and gas. You drill for oil and gas. The electricity sector, so in Uganda, we have 3 key areas. You have, under the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, you have the energy sector. That's where you find the electricity sector. And this deals with all alternative sources of energy, such as hydrology, which is largely used in Uganda because of the massive wealth that we have with rivers and waters. Then you have the solar renewable alternative energy. Then you also have, what is the other one? You have, it's a bit skipped my mind, but I think as a country, we've invested a lot in hydrology, as you are aware of the different dams that have been constructed across the River Nile and other smaller rivers like Kagera. I understand right now there's a project south of here in Kisinjiro, also looking at tapping into that Kagera River. Then, but if you have a service that you wish to provide, I think there's a framework. You have the Electricity Regulatory Authority in Kampala, which you can actually Google it, and there's quite a lot of useful information there that would guide you on how you can participate in this sector. But it's not necessarily an oil and gas sector. So the oil and gas sector is the other also department under the ministry or directorate under the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development. And then of course you have the mineral sector that I'm so passionate about myself. The other question was a solar plant in Uganda, due to the amount of sun power that we have as a country. I think there's a lot of investment and interest that is coming in to provide investment. There are many, I know, not necessarily Ugandans, but I know there are many international investors that are interested in participating in the solar and tapping into our solar resource, which is immense across the country, being the fact that we live on the equator. You also have opportunities to participate in this, but we need to be to understand that the consumption of energy is a bit interesting, because energy is consumed as soon as it's produced. Specifically, the hydro power energy. I think there's still a lot of work that needs to be done internationally in securing the right technology that allows storage of hydro electricity. So that's why you find that there are times when you notice that during peak hours, which are normally mornings and maybe evenings for one reason, that we tend to be quite busy and utilizing power in the morning when we are ironing, when we are trying to dress up, when we are preparing breakfast to go to work. So those are peak hours. Then in the evening, when we return home, you also have a lot of usage of electricity, because everyone has returned home. They are either cooking, using it, watching TV, or doing a lot of things. So that's why you find that those differentials. The beauty with solar energy is that you use batteries to store the energy that is collected during the day, and then the battery enables you to use this energy. So which is a bit different and would be a better opportunity. But also there are lots of intricacies that you have to work out with the regulatory authority, with the line ministry, in ensuring that once you produce this electricity, then you have the right market for it. Now that's where a lot of issues arise, because there's some serious startup investment that you need to generate that amount of electricity that can be connected to the grid. And as we speak right now, I think our country is still lagging behind in creating that linkage between the solar generated power to the national grid, because now we have a national grid that is purely hydrology. So you'd have to invest as a country first to ensure that you have the right technology, and the government has to offer either you to buy this electricity from you. Alternatively, you can pick a rural area yourself and say, well, this community here in Kabale, where my brother Dennis comes from, doesn't have electricity. I can set up my panels and generate this electricity and serve it to my community at an affordable fee. And there are some Ugandans and investors that have also tapped into that.
Thank you very much, Don. I think we have exhausted the various questions that we've had. We've gone half an hour above what we normally would. But I'd like to thank each and every one of our panelists that joined us today. Thank you, Don, for staying behind longer than you had originally planned. I know that you had quite a number of errands. And my condolences really for the loss of your relatives, which goes to highlight the challenging times that we're in around COVID. And I'm glad and delighted that you were able to spare some time and join us even amidst the challenges we're dealing with. So thank you very much. And to Dorothy Namuyomba, who is helping us with the sign language. I think I should learn some of this sign language. But thank you and your colleague very much for helping us. And to my colleagues on the other side who folks never get a chance to see, my colleagues at the UNDP Accelerator Lab, you all know yourselves, to Albert, who is dealing with the IT side of things, making sure that we are able to see each other. Thank you today, by the way, for the subtitles. I know that someone did ask for these, and they should have helped someone in terms of being able to follow. So we have all bases covered almost. If you can't hear, if you can't see, you can sign language, you can read some of the text. So thank you all very much. And to our participants, thank you so much once again for joining us today. Your hunger has been palpable. I think at some point we're in the 200s, if I'm not mistaken. These numbers vary depending on who's counting or what time you join. So for this session to have such an interest is really interesting. Join us again tomorrow, where we will be talking about the smart cities. Uganda now has about 8 new cities. And as the city grows, it will have different challenges. People will need where to sleep, they need food, they need to travel around. There's going to be a lot of wastage. What do you do with that? Some of the things that we're talking about today actually feed into the challenges that these cities are going to have. And with the challenges come huge opportunities for enterprise, for entrepreneurship, for young folks to apply themselves, solve these challenges, and with support from NASE and the UNDP team, get some grants while you're at it and emerge out of the pandemic a victor, so to speak. So without further ado, I would like to thank you all once again and wish you a very good day, and we shall see you tomorrow. Ciao, ciao. Bye, Don.
Bye.